We are now in a position of inferiority. There is no doubt in my mind, or in the minds of my fighter pilots, that the Fw190 is the best all-round fighter in the world today. These words were penned by Air Marshal Sholto Douglas in a letter he wrote to his superiors on the 17th of July 1942. Following the end of the Battle of Britain, RAF Fighter Command moved from defensive to offensive operations, where they would engage German fighters on the other side of the Channel. The operational instructions were ready by December 1940. This was a result of the replacement of Hugh Dowding by the more aggressive Sholto Douglas as Air Officer Commander-in-Chief of RAF Fighter Command. Douglas described his policy as leading forward into France, and it was enthusiastically supported by Trafford Leigh-Mallory, who had replaced Keith Park as head of Number 11 Group RAF. Circus was the code name given to these RAF operations across the Channel, consisting of bombers escorted by mass fighter wings, targeting airfields and critical infrastructure in occupied France, not unlike the Luftwaffe had done during the Battle of Britain. By the spring of 1942, the German air defense network in France and Belgium rivaled Britain's in effectiveness, a remarkable accomplishment achieved in just 1 year. A successful defense of the coastal region required the earliest warning possible. This was the responsibility of the Radio Intercept Service and the Freya early warning radars, which were now thick along the coast. A second chain of Freyas were located 30 to 50 miles inland. Bearings from the two chains allowed a continuous estimation of the location of enemy formations once they had crossed the coast. The Fw190s of formation leaders were equipped with IFF identification friend from foe equipment. This device contained a receiver that detected the Freya beams and a transmitter which then responded with a time signal. This signal altered the shape of the pulse displayed by the Freya receiver, permitting the fighter control unit to distinguish friendly formations from enemy. A command network ensured the rapid, simultaneous transmission of orders. All messages from the Geschwader operations room were sent via landline to radio equipment that was located in each Gruppe command post and remained turned on during all periods of readiness. All incoming messages were rebroadcast over an extensive network of loudspeakers located in the Gruppe command post, in the Staffel ready rooms and around the airfields. Thus every pilot could hear the assembly point and altitude and the latest estimate of the tactical situation while awaiting his order to take off. The first Circus of 1942 was flown on the 8th of March. It led to a massive air battle over Dunkirk that cost Jahrgeschwader 26 2 fighters and their pilots, while the RAF lost 1 Douglas Boston light bomber and 3 Spitfires. In March, RAF Fighter Command lost 32 Spitfires with their pilots. By comparison, Jahrgeschwader 26 lost 5 pilots killed. Churchill's requirement for the Circus offensive was a plane-for-plane attrition of the Luftwaffe, and it was not being met. But Sholto Douglas and Leigh-Mallory saw no option but to continue the offensive much as before. Mission plans grew ever more complex with the addition of feints and diversions. The skill of German controllers grew proportionately, and the tactical initiative remained firmly in the hands of the defenders. On the 30th of July 1942, Fighter Command directed Circus No. 200 at their tormentors on Abeville airfield, with a force of 6 Boston bombers shielded by the usual Spitfire escorts. Against the Fw190s of Jahrgeschwader 26, the Mark V Spitfires did not fare well. 14 of them failed to return, and at least 10 were shot down by the Fokker-Wulfs of 1st and 3rd Gruppen. A repeat of the operation the following day brought almost the same results. This time the Abeville kids of 2nd Gruppen rose to defend their own field and claimed the destruction of 15 Spitfires while only suffering a single casualty, an injured pilot. Fighter Command were losing pilots and aircraft during the Circus offensive at a ratio of more than 2 to 1, but Douglas claimed that losses were lighter than during the Battle of Britain and aircraft losses were replaceable. This politically motivated spin was an attempt to raise the already low morale among pilots who were suffering a lack of experienced commanders who were ordered away to reinforce the Mediterranean and Pacific. Across the Channel, the combat skills of the average German pilot had never been greater, as the Circus offensive had given the Luftwaffe much valuable experience at minimal cost. The qualitative superiority of the Jagdwaffe over its Western enemies was at its zenith. During 1941, Fighter Command claimed to have destroyed 800 enemy aircraft for the loss of 462 fighter pilots. However, the actual number of German aircraft destroyed was only 183. Included in the lost RAF aircrew, killed or captured, were some of their most experienced officers, 30 flight lieutenants, 20 squadron leaders, 6 wing commanders, and 1 group captain. Amongst them were some of Fighter Command's most vaunted aces. Eric Locke, killed in the Channel, Douglas Bader, captured in northern France, and Paddy Finucane, killed in the Pas-de-Calais. What the RAF discovered during the Circus offensive was that they experienced all the same disadvantages that the Luftwaffe had during the Battle of Britain in 1940. Operating at the outer limits of their range and over enemy territory where downed airmen would become prisoners of war rather than return to their squadrons and operational status. Additionally, with radar guidance and an extremely efficient early warning system, the Luftwaffe could choose when and where to engage the RAF. On a broader view, the campaign kept 75 fighter squadrons equipped with the most modern aircraft in the RAF stationed in England, compared to a total of 34 fighter squadrons in the Middle and Far East. Furthermore, Spitfires were not transferred to overseas commands, and the Hurricanes supplied were of older models. The situation was worse in the Far East, where the RAF had to meet the Japanese invasion of Malaya equipped with the obsolescent Brewster Buffalo, an American fighter deemed unfit for service in Europe. In the final analysis, Sholto Douglas's Circus offensive failed in its stated objectives and monopolized resources that were badly needed on other battlefronts. He failed to learn the lessons of the Battle of Britain and repeated the mistakes that were made by the Luftwaffe during the campaign, and the resultant failure was wholly predictable. With the failure of the 6th Army to secure Stalingrad in the winter of 1942, ensuring that the Luftwaffe would have to continue waging a two-front war, it would take 2 more years of bloody fighting over the Channel before the RAF would emerge the victors with total air superiority over continental Europe.